Ready?
comfortable here. I feel like I wish I had yours.
You want to switch?
Sometimes it's like
You want to switch?
I feel like people have gotten used to your voice being nice and deep all the time.
Oh, yeah. Well, it
Mine's
is just
a little
naturally.
more squeaky over here with this squeaky mic.
Yeah. Well, you got a higher voice, so I guess there's no
Yeah.
reason to use a mic that's able to pick up such bassy
Deep
sounds.
basses.
Manly sounds.
Do you remember one of the first days you were here, we recorded voiceover
Yeah.
for one of the videos, and we went under the blanket,
Yeah.
and your voice just like was like one tone. It like only picked up the bass.
Under
And it was like, "Hey,
Oh, you couldn't hear
Taylor.
anything.
My
Yeah.
name's Taylor."
It's very strange that I have a large nose, and I'll tell you why.
I guess you're privileged to have a big nose then, because you don't live in harsh conditions.
The habanero one? Holy fuck, dude. You know, maybe I've been treating this bike as some sort of parkour bike when really it's just a...
I once came face to face with a wild rhinoceros. That was pretty crazy.
I got stung by a bee once.
Oh shit, yeah.
Burning boat business.
It's one of those jokes where you now have to like take it as far as you possibly can for it to actually be funny.
Let's get demonetized.
Yeah, Game of Thrones comes out today.
Oh, it came out already.
Well, yesterday.
And
I bet all of our listeners watch Game of Thrones.
do I have my... Whoa, excuse me, people. I'm all plugged in here. Dude, I'm so fucking excited. I gotta watch my friend just sent me the season 1 to 7 like recap on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the best at like remembering that sort of stuff, so I'm excited to catch up again.
Really?
Huh?
Really?
A lot has happened.
I'm joking. You're definitely not the best at remembering little things.
So I'm excited to watch that, get pumped, and then use my friend's mom's code and log into HBO and watch the shit out of it.
I'm getting a free month trial,
Oh, yeah, that's good.
and then I can decide
After,
if I want to keep getting it to finish it.
Yeah,
But
that's good.
First 4 episodes for free.
Is that so? Oh, yeah.
Or at least I think.
Well, couldn't
so.
you do a free month and then Phoebe could do a free month? Wow, what a gene. This is why you pay me the big bucks.
But see, I kind of want to support it. I want to pay for it.
You're a support. I'm sure. I mean, the thing is, I think
not
that
the same as
most people get
streaming.
it and will forget, right? So if you've ever gotten something and forgotten, like myself, I
Like
feel
you
like
mean like gotten a free subscription?
yeah, right. I think that's kind of the point of it.
I've had Amazon Prime for like 3 years
Dude, I
because of that. Actually, I don't have it anymore, but I had it for like 3 years.
No, I thought Amazon Prime was great. I was just talking to a friend about this though. Their fucking user interface for watching stuff is the worst. I hate
movies?
everything because they have a subscription service, right? Which is like Amazon Prime stuff you can watch.
Amazon Prime movies.
So they're a bit like Netflix, and then they're also like iTunes in the sense that you can buy episodes and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's so badly organized and so awkward to maneuver. And they even have like Game of Thrones on there, and you're like, oh shit, can I watch? And then it's like, no, you have to go to HBO and sign up for a 7-day trial. And it's like, why is it on your site then?
Maybe they
It's
paid
so,
them. Maybe they paid them for advertising.
It's just it's very like in between iTunes and Netflix, and I feel like it's just very confusing to use. And then one of my friends was like, "Oh, I'll give you my Amazon Prime. You can watch." This is all the same friend. It's all Kevin. I don't have. There's not 3 separate friends. I'm not that popular. He was like, "Oh, you can use it and watch stuff on it," and I got all excited, and then I just couldn't. I couldn't even navigate it to figure out like what I could watch for free and what I could. Because you would get excited. I'd see a movie and I'd be like, I would go on the tab that said just for Prime, but only the first line is stuff that's just for Prime. And sometimes it's even like, oh, you want to watch this TV show? Here's season 2, episode 3 for free. Like, oh, thanks. And everything else is going to cost me like $4 an episode or something. You know, it's just like, it's such a bad system. I don't care.
I will only use it if I'm really desperate to watch something that I can't find anywhere else. And
Yeah.
like I go look there. I don't know why I still do it, because when has there ever been anything on Amazon Prime that wasn't available somewhere else?
Oh, like Grand Tour or that's really the only thing I watch on it.
I don't watch anything.
For those of you that it's the new version of Top Gear.
Ah,
You know, I'm a big car buff, as they say.
Since when?
I'm kidding. I know nothing about anything motorized, but I like the show. It's a good show.
Speaking of Game of Thrones, did you see that they did a? I don't know how they were able to do this. If it's like a marketing thing, or
What?
if they're just like the UK is just going crazy for this show, but they had, like the Queen's Guard when they changed the guard in London in front of the palace.
Oh,
like
yeah.
the people will walk and they'll do this
Yeah,
whole thing.
with the funny hats.
Yeah, they did it with the Night's Watch as well, like a joint changing of the guard. Where I'm like, wait, are these the actual characters from the film? Or are these
Was
just
it?
like, I don't know. It was like a wide. I barely saw it. It was
I
like
see. It's exciting, and you know why I'm excited about it as well is because
You're not up to date on anything else.
yes,
It's
it
the only
never
thing
happens.
you're up to date on.
It never happens that I'm
that's-
up to date with everyone else on a TV show and can be part of. If I had more friends, I would have something to talk about with them finally. I would be like, oh, right, Game of Thrones, the episode last night. For once, I can be part of the conversation.
We can talk about it.
Well, that would be fun. Not, like I still haven't watched Breaking Bad. I'm sure I'll watch that in like 7 years.
Do you
and
watch
be like,
Do you watch any TV shows that are like ongoing?
No.
So I mean, that's why. It's not that
Well,
you're not
I
up to
do-
date. You just don't watch anything.
Well, I'm usually just a little bit behind.
Like, what are you behind on?
I don't know. Like the example would be if I started watching Breaking Bad now. Like that could happen. I could get into it,
see.
right? And then I would watch it, and I'd be like, "Oh my god, Breaking Bad!" And you'd be like, "I know, dude. 5 years ago, I would have talked to you about
You'd
it."
watch it all in like a week though, or 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's
Breaking
hard.
Bad-
It's just hard to get into. It's very hard for me to get into a show.
It takes a lot of like choosing to do it,
Yeah,
especially when you know it's going to be good.
yeah,
You have to like be aware of what is going on in your life in the next month. Like, do I have time
Right.
to commit to this, or is this going to
Yeah.
seriously affect
yeah,
important things?
yeah.
I like strategically will watch. Like, I've rewatched Breaking Bad 3 times now.
Oh,
Ooh.
no, that's cool. I mean, that's like the only TV show we ever learned about in film school, so I'm sure it's up to par.
Very good.
Yeah, it's apparently
That and Mad Men. Also
Mad Men,
watched
okay.
that 3 times. 7 seasons.
I think it's just one of those things. It's like Game of Thrones. I only got into it because me and Kevin were watching it together. I think I'm not a big like by myself. I get into things. If I have a girlfriend at the time or something, I could get it. I just need someone to be there so that we can be like, oh shit, what's gonna happen in the next episode? By myself, I just kind of lose interest after a while.
I've only watched those shows by myself.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
The only like TV show that Phoebe and I watch together is Game of Thrones. Well, we watch
Right.
like Survivor,
that's fun.
but that's not. That's like a reality show. It's
Yeah.
like more like a silly thing. It'll
Yeah.
be like, don't take it too seriously. But Game of Thrones, excited about that.
I'm very excited.
A couple weeks ago, I said that I wanted to start raise some kind of money for a charity
Yeah.
when I'm doing the race.
Yeah.
That's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Because I started doing that yesterday. And like beforehand, I was like, wait, how does one even do that? Because I just thought, God, that sounds like a good idea. But then
Yeah.
I was like, oh, GoFundMe. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever used that. But
No, I haven't.
Do you know of it?
GoFundMe? Of course.
So, but you've never used it, but you know of it and what it does.
I know of it, and I believe I have supported. I don't know if it was on GoFundMe, but it was a similar thing for like charities. I think there might be a
So you've
specific
used it.
one.
I mean, that's what I mean by used it. Like, been like supported someone.
Oh yeah,
or
but I have
something.
never had like a thing myself.
It's like there's crowdfunding, there's Patreon, and
Yeah.
then there's GoFundMe, which is where you can like raise money for charities. I think you can also raise money.
Oh,
for,
okay. I thought Kickstarter and GoFundMe were like the same thing.
They are, like, as in you can have a project on GoFundMe and
Yeah.
like raise money for it, but it is very much tailored towards raising money for charities
I see.
or
Okay.
raising money for to pay like your medical bills or something like that.
Gotcha.
It's that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And so I went on there and I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to try and create a page.
Okay.
And so I started like, it asks you the questions about, so what's the thing called?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know.
Mads' mega marathon.
Iron Man.
Yeah.
And then it asks you to like tell your story.
Yeah.
And it has like little examples of what you should try and include because that's
Okay.
important. I was like, why is this something I'm interested in? Because I said last time that it was because I feel like a big part of what I liked about reading certain books, specifically by authors like Tony Robbins, was his commitment to contributing to charities, and that contribution was a huge part of his self-help philosophy. And
Yeah.
I kind of started to get into that, and I could definitely see what he meant. And I felt like I hadn't done that for a while, so I wanted to like try and do that again. But then while I was writing it yesterday, I was like, well, this is not at all why I'm wanting to do it. It feels like it's a much more like personal thing. So let's get serious on the podcast.
Oh shit.
Well, it's nothing like secret, but it's something that I don't think I've really properly talked about on the podcast before. But that running, I think it made me realize why I'm into running as much as I am. Sometimes I'm like, why do I get so passionate about talking about it, specifically with you?
Yeah.
And it was very much that I went for a run when I was very close to relapsing and drinking again.
Right.
After I had been trying to stop drinking for like, I'd say the better part of a year, here and there, quitting and then starting again, and quitting and starting again, and not really knowing what was really going on. And I think it's easy now for me to look at the fact that I was definitely, I had an addiction to alcohol, and that I was totally unaware of how to stop, and that randomly I went for a run. And I think the way I phrased it in what I wrote on this GoFundMe page was, I'd been running before, but this was like the first time I went for a run, and it wasn't a workout. It was, I went for a run to try and deal with whatever it was that was going on. And like something just changed. I went for like a 4K run. I remember I was living in London at the time. I just graduated from university, and we had moved to London, and I was just having like one of those feelings of, it's like every time I'd quit, it was basically this very helpless feeling of knowing that it's only a matter of time before I can't hold it anymore. It didn't feel like it went away anymore. It just felt like it was this continuously building pressure that would inevitably have to go somewhere, and that would most likely be to just start drinking again.
Yeah.
Becoming like a default would be to, whenever something difficult happened, just go to that.
Yeah.
And maybe we can get into why that was in the first place. But I just remembered how just going for this one run where I ran around the river. I'd never really done anything like that before. I used to do track and field, so it's not like running is new to me. And I know that it's healthy, and it like feels good to work out, but it just did something that I'd never really experienced before. And I felt like I realized afterwards that it took away some of the pressure instead of just kept building up on it. It wasn't, and it's like there's a little bit of, oh shit, there's actually something I can do to, this thing is working. I feel like people who suffer from mental health issues, there's so many things that they have to try. It's very rare, I think, that you try one thing and that happens to be the thing that really works for you.
Right.
Whether it be medication or therapy or talking about it with a friend or like physical activity.
Yeah.
And that to me, I think, has been the biggest thing. And so it's something that's very personal to me, this idea of how much physical activity, and specifically running, can do, has done for me. And I know that other people have had similar experiences. So I very much wanted to try and raise some awareness about that in a way that I hadn't talked about it before. Because I ran a marathon last year, and it's like, I knew why I was doing it, but I would just say that it's because it's a challenge.
Right.
But to me, it represents being in control,
right,
and being able to deal with it, and taking responsibility, and it's a very simplified way of being able to always fall back to that and have that continuously be part of my life, and then to just increase the challenge every time so that it still has that element to it that is very important, I think, which is that it's a mental challenge as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also gets a little bit closer to, I know you've asked me a lot of times why I want to make this documentary about myself.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of it is this feeling of wanting to talk about how much of knowing how I felt and feeling like, oh, I don't know how I could ever not feel like this or get out of this.
Yeah.
To finding something, and then seeing how it could change the way you thought.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like it's a very important thing. And it's also what my feature-length film about my brother is about, and why I wanted to do that so badly when it came around, because it was a way of dealing with those topics without, at the time, having to talk about specifically myself, because I don't think at the time I really fully understood what I had gone through or was going through, and it was a good way of getting into it and trying to figure it out a little bit more for myself. But yeah, so I have this page now.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually live. I haven't shared it though.
Nice.
Because I kind of want some people to read it first.
All right.
Just to see if there's anything that could be better. And then today's like the first day of my very serious 12 weeks of training.
Right.
Right. And so it's like, I think why I'm excited about talking about it is that it feels like I'm a little bit more clear on why I want to do this, and why it's not just like go out and run an Ironman. It's a big challenge.
Yeah.
It's like it represents a lot more than that, and why the training specifically is so important for it.
Uh-huh.
It's like, yeah, you could go out and you could just break your body and do it just out of sheer will if you wanted to, but it's about like having that discipline and setting a goal and then working towards it, and
right,
all the other benefits.
Yeah.
And so I hope that with this GoFundMe page that I can raise some money, because I found a charity here in Copenhagen that I'd heard about before, but I did a lot of research yesterday, and it's called SIND, SIND. Directly translated, it's like mind a little bit.
Okay.
And they're a charity that they do a lot of things like counseling and groups and events, but they specifically have like a hotline that you can call if you want counseling, and it's all for free.
Gotcha.
So if you're suffering from something or struggling with something, you can call that number, and you will talk to like an expert.
Sounds like, have you mentioned them before?
Maybe.
Okay.
I think I knew of the name, but didn't know much about specifically what they do.
Okay.
So I think what I'll do is I'll just, however much money is raised will be donated to that. And so I've said that I want to start by pledging 500 kroner, which is around, I don't know, like 65 euros, something like that. And then anyone who's interested can match me on that, or I mean, you can contribute whatever you want, because everything helps. But
yeah,
that way, if 25 other people do it as well, we could raise 12,500 kroner, which to me sounds like that's a good amount. So yeah, I mean, I think
I love it.
If we wanted to continue talking about this subject and try and get more deep into something, I was thinking it could be this idea of addiction and how it can really, I think it's hard for someone who hasn't felt what it feels like to be addicted to something, it can be very hard to understand. But I think there is a way to talk about it, but maybe, I don't know. It's not something that I go around talking about on the regular.
Talk about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think. Well, let's hold on that for a while. What I've been thinking is the idea of charity and giving to people and all that good stuff. I was thinking the other day, I think it's such an important thing to do, and this is a very weird analogy, but I think it kind of makes sense in my head. Where I was thinking, like, I had a day on Saturday, I had nothing to do, right? And like usually I'll wake up in the morning, and if we have a busy day ahead of us and I watch a YouTube video or something, boy, do I fucking love that video, right? But if I don't have a busy day and I wake up in the morning and I literally have nothing to do and I watch the video, all the joy goes away. It suddenly becomes the most mundane, useless thing that was so enjoyable to me the previous day. And in many ways, I know we're not quite there yet, but I think I was thinking also about, this is such a weird offshoot, I hope this isn't too far out, but Jeff Bezos and his wife got divorced, right? And she left with a 4% stake in Amazon, which is like $35 billion. And I just imagined, and I said, well, God, what if you have $35 billion? You know, like, money suddenly doesn't mean anything anymore because you don't have this, like, oh, I need to pay the bills. Oh, this is going to pay for this. Oh, if I just get a little bit more, I can get this little thing that's helpful, blah, blah, blah. And I think you might get to a certain point where it that same way the YouTube video all of a sudden in a different context had no value anymore. I think the same thing can happen with your money. And then I started thinking, well, what can you do? And then it immediately clicked to me. I was like, oh, that is almost the thing. This, like, well, you could give to other people. I mean, you could never probably get sick of doing things for other people. It doesn't have to be even a monetary thing or whatever, but there's just this sort of thing of like incorporating that into your life. I think is something that would give you happiness and all these things that, you know, you're helping other people, but it also obviously helps yourself, right? Gives you a sense of purpose, gives you a sense of value and everything.
There's a study that was done where there were 3 test groups.
Uh-huh.
Let me make sure I get it right. The first group was given $25 and they were asked to spend it on something for themselves.
Right.
And then the second group was asked to spend that $25 on someone they knew.
Right.
To buy something for them.
Right.
And then the third group was asked to spend $25 on someone they didn't know. And then they were, in some way or another, measured like who felt the best about what they spent the money on afterwards. And it was the third group, the people who were giving money to someone they didn't know.
Right.
Felt the best.
Right.
And so it makes sense that it is something that it's like you can't do a selfless good deed. I think there's a funny scene in Friends where Phoebe and Joey have like a challenge about, I think Joey says there's no such thing as a selfless good deed because you will get something out of it yourself.
Right.
Phoebe's like determined to prove him wrong, and she can't because it's like it makes her feel good every time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, that's fine. It's like, it's such a, I think, natural thing to feel good when you help someone else.
Right.
And that should be a good enough reason to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like.
But it's so easy to forget, you know? Something as simple as like the person behind you in the coffee line just paying for their.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to be to like a certain, you know?
Yeah, no,
it's just
not
like
at
little
all.
things
Little
that change
things,
up. Yeah. So, and as always, I've said it so many times on this podcast, I keep saying I want to do something and I'm not doing shit. So I really respect you said it, you're going to do it, you're setting it up, it's getting, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's great. And I think it also adds to the Iron Man, you know? Just makes it that much more,
I know,
you know, of a thing.
Yeah, I know. So I've quit a bunch of because I was looking at the schedule of training things I need to do, and I was like, well, to be able to do this, I need to cut things out of my life.
Okay. So
I've gone on a full social media cleanse as well, following your lead there a little bit.
Nice.
And so the only thing I'm allowed to watch, if I want to watch something that's not like a film, is Iron Man related YouTube.
I thought you meant the movie. I was like, that's a really weirdly specific thing.
Did you think that for long, or was it just for a
No,
split
for about
second?
3 seconds.
Okay, thank God, because you then went okay. And
Yeah,
you
well, I
turned.
looked
was
over and
like,
I saw running,
did
and I
you
was like,
think
that makes more sense.
I want to try and talk about why I started drinking alcohol,
All right.
because it's something that I think I know, but I find very hard to explain.
Okay.
So feel free to help me out
Well, I don't know.
in terms of like, does that make sense, or like if there's something
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
unclear.
Yeah.
So I didn't drink at all for like the first 18 years of my life.
Okay.
I think I maybe had like, actually, I think the first time I had more than like one beer
Okay.
was at your party
no.
in high school.
Well,
So I think if you can call it, I like started drinking later than most people.
mm,
And so I think there was a feeling of, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but like when you start drinking when you're like younger,
yeah.
I feel like it, because it's something you're not allowed to do,
Yeah.
it maybe gives you a little bit longer to get used to it, because it's not something you have regular access to. It's something that happens on
Yeah.
special occasions is the wrong word, but rarely, in the sense that like if you go to a party,
Yeah.
or if it's something you can, it naturally gets monitored in a way, because everyone who's not like your friends
Mm-hmm.
telling you that's not something you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But when I started, I basically was in my first year of university.
Okay.
And so it's like the first time you feel drunk and you feel like what that feels like.
Yeah.
Which is a good feeling.
Yeah.
You have unlimited access to it, and
Right.
everyone is encouraging you to do it.
Right.
And it's happening 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week. Different parties, different events, social gatherings, everything, especially going to the university in the UK.
Okay.
There's a massive drinking culture there.
Okay.
You basically can't do anything without drinking.
Right.
Even if it's a meeting with your, like the social club you go to. Like I went to like rock climbing.
Right.
Like you drink,
Right.
if not during, like immediately after, and it
Right.
was almost more why you went.
Yeah.
A lot of people would go and just kind of fuck around, and then afterwards that was why they were there. And so there's like nothing holding you back.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's a very easy way to develop a very unnatural and unhealthy relationship to something that is as addictive as alcohol.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to, like in Germany, the legal drinking age is 16.
Mhm.
So you have to imagine kids start drinking at like 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely noticed when I went to college in the States, the first day, I think we had like 5 or 6 ambulances come to the dorm and get people for alcohol poisoning. 'Cause it
Yeah.
was that exact situation. I mean, in America, you're not allowed to drink until you're 21,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Yeah.
But it means all these kids leave home, and it's the first time they're kind of allowed to
Yeah.
drink. I mean, yeah, you need a fake ID, but you could also just make friends with someone who's older or who fucking knows. And they go crazy. You know, people go absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
And I think that exact thing of like, if the first time you're exposed to it, you're not around your parents, yeah, you might go a little bit, you might not know when to stop, I guess.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it's only one part of it. I mean, it's not like everyone who's in the
No,
same
but I think it's
situation will
everything, you know, same with
up-
weed and everything, like kids smoking before class. And it's like, I think some people just have a hard time controlling themselves because they've been, it's almost the same thing with where they say people whose parents are really anti-sex kind of become like overly sexual
Yeah.
as soon as they're allowed to kind of live their own lives, you know, kind of come out in weird ways.
I had a very I had very relaxed parents in terms of stuff like that. It's not like we weren't allowed to.
Gotcha.
It didn't appeal to me.
Gotcha.
I remember feeling like I don't want to drink anything. Like I don't want to not be in control, and I
Right.
don't want to like, what if I do something that I don't want to do, or like say something stupid?
I see.
Like maybe a feeling of insecurity. I don't really know.
I see.
So it's like a choice on my own part. I mean, I didn't know what it was, what I was saying no to, really.
Mhm.
But then it just, changed.
Yeah.
I grew up a little bit. But I have I think people throw around the term addictive personality a little loosely
Mhm.
sometimes.
Okay.
Because I used to say, oh, I have a very addictive personality, and that played a big part in why I got addicted to alcohol, just because that's part of my personality. But then on like thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, maybe, but everything else that I'm addicted to are things that have massive benefits and very little downsides. Like,
yeah.
like exercising, or just taking something seriously. Like if I get into something, whether it be like card magic,
Yeah.
or paintball,
Yeah.
like, that is all I want to do. Like I am all in.
Right.
I want everything. I want it all the time.
Right.
And I feel like that's just more focused than it is being addicted to it. Like I'm very into this, and I'm not gonna get distracted by other things I might be into. I'm like almost not even gonna open my mind up to being interested in anything else, because I really want to get good at this, or I really want to know what this is fully.
Yeah.
And that's not really the same thing as like, it's like, it feels like it's a choice. An addiction is something that's not a choice. And so I think that's why I hesitate to say addicted to exercise, because it feels like it's I know why I'm doing it. I'm choosing to do it. It doesn't feel like it's something that I have to do.
Yeah. I think there are people who are
I
addicted
know,
to
exactly.
exercise.
I think I totally agree, but I don't think I am.
I see.
And so I used to say all the time, oh, like, I feel like maybe it's just an easy way of explaining something that's more complex. That part of the reason why I abused alcohol was just because I had an addictive personality, and I just don't think that that's true. And I think it's such a complex thing, addiction, because it's never the case that someone is like, it could be anything, really. It just happens to be what you stumble upon first, or what happens to have the biggest chemical reaction that affects you in a way that you want to keep pursuing. But it's that you are addicted to what it does, which is, like, let me explain, I guess, that it makes you either not think about something, or it makes you think about something in a certain way.
Okay.
Right?
Makes you not think about something, or makes you think about something.
People are addicted to alcohol.
I think that's very specific to alcohol. I would say maybe. I wouldn't know, but I would say, like, not everything is mind altering. So you could be addicted to food.
How's that not mind altering?
Is that not what doesn't change your state of mind? If I smoke cigarettes, it doesn't change my state of mind.
Well, I mean, it does, but on a smaller level.
Yeah, but I would say mind altering is like alcohol, weed, like mind altering drugs, like things that literally change the state of mind you're in, or could change your personality, or could change who you are, maybe.
Yeah, but like, you could be addicted to exercise,
Totally.
which is which is mind altering, I think.
Yeah, I guess everything is mind altering, and
It's like you're addicted to food because once you eat food, you feel a certain way, or it blocks out something else, or it's a coping mechanism to deal with something else. My point is that there's something else going on.
I see what you're saying.
That is the cause of it.
Okay.
It is never just that you are addicted to something.
Uh-huh.
It is always the result, or maybe like the obvious way that it presents itself.
Okay.
Is through the addiction, but really it's something else that you're going through. And like, it can be super confusing and like really scary to be like, well, why am I doing this? And like, why do I keep doing this?
Uh-huh.
And if you don't know that, it's like, well, you have to come up with a reason. I feel like if you ask yourself a question, your mind just naturally tries to come up with an answer.
Yeah.
It's like if someone asks you something, it's natural to try and come up with a reason why something's happening. And if you don't know why, you have to guess or you have to make something up. And very often I feel like that thing is not true at all. Like, for example, if I keep drinking and why am I doing this? I keep behaving in ways that I don't agree with. I don't like who I am when I'm doing it. Why do I keep doing that? It must be just because I'm a bad person, for example. It's like, well, that's obviously not true.
Right.
But thinking that, it can make you feel like that's true. And so then that fuels it even more because I'm just a bad person.
Right.
And that's why I do it. I'm choosing to do it because I'm a bad person.
Okay.
And it's like this negative spiral of just because you weren't able to understand why you're drawn to something like that.
Right.
And I'm really not saying that I think I know fully like what that thing that I'm talking about being the real reason behind any addiction.
Yeah.
I don't fully maybe know what it is for me. But I think I'm like trying to think about it, and it's obviously something I've had a lot of time to think about.
Yeah.
'Cause it fills a lot.
Well, how long's it been? Maybe just give a little context here.
Well, I think I started, I think I'd say my first year of university, which would have been in 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
I would say I was like any other university student at that time.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that I considered a problem, even now would consider an issue.
Gotcha.
I think a whole nother thing is how totally socially accepted it is.
Oh, especially in England.
It's
I mean, it's
crazy.
a little bit insane.
I find it really disturbing now, being someone who's sober.
Yeah.
I have an even stronger
Well, I'm sure.
opinion
Yeah.
of it than probably the average person.
Yeah.
That it's like accepted that, and when I say accepted, I don't mean like say your kid goes out and gets blackout drunk
Yeah.
and like breaks something and can't remember, gets arrested. Maybe that's a bit extreme, but something.
Yeah.
Maybe acts like an asshole.
Yeah.
You'd probably tell them that's not good, don't do that again.
Yeah.
But it's like it's really not more than that.
Yeah.
It's like you're still totally expected to kind of, it's going to happen again, or that it's not something that's really that bad. It's like that's just part of growing up, is having these experiences and learning about what this substance does.
Yeah.
I find within my own family that people are allowed to behave totally not okay. In my opinion, I don't find it acceptable behavior, but it's explained off. Oh, just because they were drinking, people were drinking.
Right.
Like that's just it's not
Right.
more than that.
Right.
I'm like, why is that okay? Why is it accepted that people can behave like they are just because they're drinking? And it's something that is not talked about.
Why is it okay? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm getting off topic a little bit. I was talking about
when I was asking how long has it been, I was talking about just sobriety.
How long has it been? Yeah, but I think it's important also to how long it
Sure,
took
I'm
to
just
get
not.
there.
I don't want to lead you anywhere.
So the second year of university is when it started to become something that I abused.
Okay. What does that mean?
It means that I'd start to drink by myself.
Okay.
I specifically would watch films and drink.
Right.
That was my thing. And a very hard thing to get over because it started to become something that was connected. The idea of watching good films and drinking alcohol
I see.
almost became inseparable.
I see.
And that's tough when
You love films.
is something you love and is something you want to keep doing.
Yeah.
It almost feels like, oh my God, I can't do that if I get rid of this other part.
Yeah.
But that's how it started. Was I started watching films and I would have a couple of drinks while I watched them.
Mm-hmm.
Not much at first, but like 2 or 3 maybe in the span of a film. But that obviously got more
I see.
as you start to build up a tolerance. It
Right.
starts to not have as much of an effect.
Right.
And then this is separate from all the parties that you're going to at university
Right.
and all the social gatherings. So
Yeah.
it'd be like not unusual to have something to drink at least 5 or 6 times a week.
Yeah.
2 of those being a lot,
Yeah.
to the point of being actually drunk.
Okay.
And then I think the 3rd year of university was when it really got bad. And that's when Phoebe and I had been, up until that point, we had been at university together.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the 3rd year, she went away to Paris. So now I was
Right.
completely by myself.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, even more left, kind of like the kid who goes away from home.
Yeah.
Now is introduced to alcohol. No
Even
parents.
more free. Yeah.
Well, free is a funny word to use, but yeah, kind of. I could just do whatever my brain wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then I became aware of it being an issue then.
Okay.
And I think at the end of that year, I was already starting to have these periods of time where I was like, I need to stop, and I would, whether it be for like 2 weeks or if it'd be like for 2 months maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say I'm not going to drink anything for this long,
Mm-hmm.
and I would always not drink for that long,
Yeah.
and I'd be like, okay, well, I can control it,
Right.
and so I can start again. Because
Right.
clearly it's not a problem, because people say an addiction is an issue when you can't control it.
Okay.
And I guess a way of interpreting that is, well, I'm able to control not doing it.
Right, I didn't do it for this
I can
span
make
of
myself
time.
not do it.
Right.
I'm able to
If I had to.
deal with it.
Yeah.
And not do it.
Yeah.
But there's this sense of like, oh my God, I can't wait for this time to be over the whole time.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it's like a month and a half.
Yeah.
2 more weeks.
Yeah.
And it's like there's 2 parts of me who, one's part is saying, yeah, I'm able to control it.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna drink in the 2 weeks when my like time is up, and then the other part is saying like, you know that you're gonna go crazy when these 2 weeks are up, and it's just gonna get as bad as it was
Gotcha.
when you stopped.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you justify it in your own head, and it's because it's confusing. You don't know why you feel like that. Like, why am I so? I mean, it's such a powerful drug.
Alcohol.
Alcohol is
Yeah.
one of the most addictive drugs.
Is it? Compared to
It's something that people don't, I think, know.
Yeah. Maybe one of the most like socially I'm
It's
sure
one
there's
of the most
way more.
addictive drugs.
Really?
It's one of the hardest drugs to stop taking. It is.
wow.
I've read a lot of stuff about
Mm-hmm.
this, and people who've been addicted to heroin and people who have been addicted to alcohol. Some people say it's harder to quit alcohol than it is to quit heroin.
I see. Yeah, I definitely know maybe it's hard to, because obviously if alcohol gets to a certain extent, I think there's a sort of a barrier you break at which it's like dangerous to stop drinking. Like where your body literally is the same way with
An
heroin
important distinction is the physical dependence
right,
on the substance
Right.
is different from a mental dependence.
right,
And that's what I'm talking about.
right.
Your body can handle, well, like you said, it is dangerous for
Yeah.
heavy drinkers who drink a lot every day.
Right.
If they stop drinking, they can have a heart attack. They can
Or-
die.
yeah.
In the same way that a heroin
Horrible
addict
stories. Yeah.
can. But you got to the point of the social acceptance of this
Yeah.
thing. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It is so normal.
Yeah.
Everyone drinks.
Yeah.
And so you're constantly surrounded by it.
Right.
Imagine if everyone was shooting up heroin constantly and you were trying to stop.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things to stop doing. And well, I was talking about how it's confusing. So your brain is, you feel like you have like a split personality almost, because part of you is trying to rationalize it and part of you realizes that you can't.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, well, which one is right?
Yeah.
And then 4th year of university, I'd say that was when I started to make significant progress that would significant progress in the sense that I started to realize with myself that this was something that I actually had to completely stop. It wasn't just like, you're not in control just because you can abstain for a certain amount of time. Like, because every time you go back to it, you're unable to control it.
Would anything happen? Or it just became the number of drinks or the...
Well, yeah. I mean, I'd get completely blackout drunk and not be able to remember anything I did. I would hurt people, not like physically, but like people close to me.
Okay.
And I would lie. I would do. I mean, there's nothing that I would say. It's not like I got drunk and like crashed a car or something, like in that sense. Is that what you're asking? Like,
no, I'm asking more just the...
like, what effect did it have on my life?
Yeah, or at what point do you say, this is really an issue?
When it starts to be something that you're not looking forward to, but you do it anyways.
Right, okay.
And it starts to affect everything else because you're thinking about, oh, that's what I'm going to do the day after tomorrow.
Right.
So you're almost unable to focus on anything else that really matters.
Right.
And then once you've done it, you're going to be hungover for 2 days.
Right.
So you're not able to do anything during that period of time either.
Right.
You start to just not really do anything except for watch movies and get really drunk.
Blasted, yeah.
And then start to, it's an issue. So you start to not want to like tell people. So you start to lie about it.
Right.
I'm not doing that because it's like either I have to admit that I am going to do that, or I have to admit that I'm not able to control it. And it's like, I think the worst one, and why a lot of people do lie, is that it's harder to admit that you can't control it, because it's like you're admitting to a massive weakness in yourself. It's easier to lie about it.
Okay.
I think that, to me, comes up all the time. People who, I don't want to call anyone out, but people who, it's like impossible not to talk about everyone knowing who I'm talking about.
I don't know. Mr. X.
Well, this has been talked about anyways. The movie about my brother.
Oh, yeah.
He suffers from depression and anxiety, and he, for a long time, has lied about a lot of things. And to me, it makes perfect sense because I know exactly what it feels like. But to a lot of other people, it's like, why does he keep lying? Why does he keep not telling the truth?
Yeah.
And he'll lie about stuff like small things, like he was supposed to go to the post office and send a letter somewhere with something important in it. Yeah, I did that. I went and did that. Okay, great. And then like 2 weeks later, the letter still hasn't arrived. Like, I don't know if there's, I can't find the tracking number. I don't know where it is.
Right.
Why are you, wait, did you post this? And then like, when it's absolutely like, there's no way around it, it's like, yeah, I didn't do it. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right.
And it's like, why do you do that? And to me, it's like, well, because why wouldn't you just go and post the letter? To anyone else, that is so hard to understand. But to someone who suffers from depression, where getting out of bed or having any sense of purpose on a regular basis, it can be the hardest thing to just go and do that.
I think people can. I mean, obviously, they can understand the extent of it.
Yeah.
But I think everyone can relate to procrastinating in a sense,
and
or
it's easier to lie about it
really
than to admit that you are doing that.
Right. Or like you have a test in school and you decide not to study and you do something else instead and you feel shitty the whole time you're doing it. And you're like, if I just fucking finish this thing real quick, then I could actually enjoy the thing that I'm doing.
And it becomes embarrassing that you're not doing. Why? Like, it's embarrassing that you're not doing it.
Yeah, it's a strange, right. So maybe not the extent, but I think definitely everyone can understand, or at least I can totally understand where that comes from. And I've definitely pulled some stuff like that myself.
continuing the timeline.
Mm-hmm. So we were year 4.
Yeah, and I
you
was
said
saying
you
this
were
is when I
starting
started
to-
to realize that I had to actually properly quit.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I started to realize, I keep saying started to realize, well, then it became clear that that wasn't easy at all.
Yeah.
Because I would say, I'm actually going to stop.
Yeah.
And totally believe it.
Yeah.
And be totally convinced that I am going to not do this again.
Mm-hmm.
I know why I don't want to do it. I've had enough of it. I'm going to change.
Uh-huh.
And I start changing. I start changing things in my life.
Yeah.
And it just keeps kind of coming back
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah.
And I think, well, okay, just to finish the timeline, then so I would have these longerish periods of time where I wouldn't drink, where it was an attempt to totally stop. So
Uh-huh.
it was a real failure
Uh-huh.
to then start again. It wasn't like I had expired. I had reached my goal time of not drinking by. It was like I had completely just failed my goal of never doing it again.
Yeah.
And so that would just, send you into this massive downward spiral, and you'd feel even more depressed because
Right.
like I can't even control that. Like this
Right.
is like what am I gonna do? Because I really want to stop, and I can't.
Okay.
Like, why am I not able to do it? And then I went for that run right after I graduated university, and I don't know, it's like I don't think that a lot of things change in like a moment,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time I do because of this.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, I guess it's also the feeling of, well, it's also the meaning you give this event, if you want to call it an event,
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah.
As in, because something actually did change and I stopped drinking for a full year,
Yeah.
something must have happened there. Whereas if I had started drinking the week after, I would have probably not looked at this run
Right.
the same way.
Right.
But it did. Something, either the way I thought about it changed, or, well, it's a lot of things that happened. But it was this run set in motion, this idea that it just convinced me just a little bit more that I could do something about it myself, and that it wasn't this thing that was completely out of my control. And I think it allowed me to identify what this thing was that was actually causing the addiction. And so it became more about that than it became about alcohol, because it's so easy to get caught up in the thing that the issue is manifesting itself as.
What was the issue?
Well, this is I guess, like, this is, I don't think it's like one thing, but I think it was this feeling of really wanting to, and I think everyone can relate to this to an extent, really wanting to do something important and have meaning and have a purpose, and want to be really good at something, and that you and maybe that idea being shattered a little bit by suddenly being thrown into the real world of not being at home, not being in school, not being in an environment where everyone is constantly encouraging you, and you start to think that you can pretty much do anything.
Yeah.
And then you leave that space, and suddenly it's like, well, it's not as easy as you thought it was, and things aren't necessarily set perfectly in line so that you can achieve exactly what you want to, and just maybe somewhere realize maybe you're just not as good as you think you are at something that you really want to be good at, and not knowing how you can become good at it, or that maybe that's just not something I can do. And so you start to get lost in feelings of, like, the reason why I would watch films, and the films I would watch, like, that's been something that I've really been able to look at and identify, well, why was I drawn to those films? Because it wasn't like I would watch, stoner comedies and get blackout drunk. I would watch very serious, dramatic films about huge life changes in people. Like, I would watch I would watch films like Forrest Gump
Mhm.
or Castaway or
Anything with Tom Hanks.
Toy Story. No, I'm joking. Yeah. I watch films like Revolutionary Road
Mm.
or Breaking Bad.
Mm.
Like there's a massive change that happens in this person. Or I would watch Mad Men, or I would watch Titanic,
Mm.
or I would watch The Shawshank Redemption.
Mm.
Like films where,
You're just listing good films.
yeah, but I feel like they all have something in common, which is it's this individual character who is able to fight their way through their problems and come out at the other side victorious, and like have learned these big life lessons, and like they make it through. And I would almost feel like, well, that's what I get. I'm not going to be able to experience that myself,
Mm.
but at least I can feel it through these people on
Right.
the screen.
Or sort of get the satisfaction of watching 20 years later and everything worked out for them. And a bit you can be like, I remember you sent me Flight for when we were working on your movie and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that one of them as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would never watch the ending.
Right.
So that doesn't, that point.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, because that to me was like, well, the end of Flight, he gets sober,
Yeah.
and I would never watch the
Just
ending.
leave it at that
Yeah.
high moment where he just gets blasted again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a form of depression that I had, and I think depression can be so many things. So I'm
Uh-huh.
hesitant to say depression
Uh-huh.
because it can mean something very different for different people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's something that maybe just, I don't think there has to be a reason why I felt that, as in like something happened in my childhood,
Uh-huh.
or I went through something traumatic at some point, and these feelings occurred. I feel like there's maybe it just happened. Like I
Right.
just started thinking like this,
Right.
very negative thoughts about
Right.
myself and about what I was able to do.
Okay.
Which was very weird because up until then I'd been very confident and very focused, and like I knew what I wanted to do, and I
Mhm.
felt like I had control. And then suddenly all these things are happening in my head, and I can't explain why they're happening.
Yeah.
And like, why do I feel like I can't do anything? And then, well, I want to feel that again. I want to feel like I can do stuff.
Oh, I
I'm
see.
used
Yeah, I
to
see.
feeling that.
Yeah.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah.
And like everyone likes feeling like they're good at something, or like they can do what they want to do, or
Uh-huh.
like they have a purpose. And suddenly that gets taken away from you, and then by something like depression. And so you have to fill that space with something. And so I filled it with feeling that way by drinking.
Mm.
And so I think that the reason why I don't feel like that anymore is because I've realized, well, you can't, like, maybe it's not as easy as you thought it was naively. It's very hard, but that makes it that much more exciting because it's a long thing that you have to keep working towards the things you want, and you can't just be good because you want to be good.
Right.
It just doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, it happens
Getting
for some people, but
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe you think that that's you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just naturally talented.
I'm
at
the
this.
Mozart of whatever.
Yeah. And it's like you have to let that thought die away
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
and realize that no, there's no, like, for me, there's no talent. It is all just, I have to just work on it and
Mhm.
and develop the skill.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it's like you're regaining control of your own thoughts, and you start to realize that these things can be done in order to feel that way that you want to feel. But
Mhm.
it's so much harder than just taking a sip of something.
Uh-huh.
But it's also so much better because it lasts and it's real and it doesn't go away as soon as this chemical wears off. and
Right.
You're left with nothing.
Right.
But yeah, I've been sober for almost 2 years now, And before then, I was sober for over a year, and I had one relapse, if you can call it that. Where that's an interesting one. It's very hard to explain. I think the conclusion I've reached with this one was that I really do feel like something changed on that day when I went for a run 3 years ago. And that the reason why I drank a year later was just that, because your brain gets ingrained with these, the addiction has it physically alters the shape of your brain. The neurons that fire are lined up in a way that makes you, one thing makes you think something else. Well, that's how your brain works. You get a memory, it physically develops in your brain. And the same way an addiction does that. So certain things can trigger you. And if enough things, I'm convinced that something like this happened, enough triggers kind of lined up all at once.
Right.
It just overrode everything else that I had built up in terms of tools to help combat it.
Yeah.
And that I don't think there's any better explanation than that, because I was able to very quickly realize that, and unlike all the other times when I would fail at quitting, I would just be like depressed for a really long time, and I wasn't. I was able to very quickly get over it and realize why it happened, how to not let that happen again, and really use it almost like as a learning experience. And like, thank God that happened now, and not like in 10 years when the effect would have been even like more devastating.
Right.
I feel like I was very aware of how strong triggers can be. Things like songs or smells. Suddenly you hear a song that you listened to when you were in your addiction.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy.
And it will literally make you like go crazy.
Yeah.
Or you'll smell like a fucking flower or something bizarre. Like, I don't go around smelling flowers, but suddenly I'm walking down the street and like the summer air makes me smell something from a car, and I'm like, oh my God, like that reminds me instantly of this other moment when I was drinking or something like that. Or even just actors in movies. Now, that's why I talked about the thing about the movies is very difficult, because I started to associate all my favorite films with drinking. Every single one of my favorite films I would watch when I drank. It almost became like I couldn't watch these films anymore, because it would instantly set me into this mindset of, I have to, it's so hard not to do that now. Like there's scenes in films where I would always drink right then, because I don't know why, but that's just like, I started to have like, sound like a crazy person now really talking about it. And this is where I want you to make sure that you're
normal
asking if something sounds.
I relate to it. I don't know about other people,
because I do really feel like it's not so bizarre if you look at it and take a little bit of time to think about, well, why would someone do that?
Right.
But it can, on the surface, look totally crazy, and like you can't explain it.
Yeah. No, I think people totally can relate to it. I've had multiple friends tell me they have one friend or something that when they get together, they just get blackout.
Yeah.
And they're not even big drinkers or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like that one friend has whatever connection in their head, and it just always leads to the same. Or, I have it with like songs or something sometimes, right? Where it's like you listen to a certain song doing something so often that then you just can't really listen to that song without it immediately. Is Arlo sleeping?
No.
Without it triggering something, and many, many different things. Or, I just know it also from like cigarettes and stuff. I have a lot of things that will just, small things that bump. Oh, there, I want it.
And it'll never go away.
No. And I think it's interesting with I listen to a lot of comedian podcasts, and for whatever reason, like every comedian is a fucking in AA, and
Yeah.
they all have, self-described pretty massive problems from childhood or with addiction or whatever. And from all of them, I've heard this like, oh, it's a disease and you always have it. And that you kind of, your brain tries to convince you maybe over time, this thing of like, oh, you're fine. It's been 12 years. Like, you don't need to go to those meetings anymore. Like, you're fine, right? And then slowly they'll say they get more and more like feeling weird and like into old little habits. And then it's like they got to catch themselves. And I think it's great. Like Bobby Lee, I think he said he relapsed after like 12 years or something, right?
Yeah.
So it totally shows this thing of like, it's not like a one and done thing. So I think also you saying after a year that sort of came back is like, I think it's probably a constant thing if you're really addicted to something.
Yeah.
To the point of it being a disease.
You learn how to deal with it, and you learn what tools work for you.
Right.
And you get very good at catching a thought process
Yeah.
before it gets
Yeah.
to a place where it feels like now I have to put a lot of work into it.
Right.
So it gets easier in that
Right.
sense.
And your brain is so good at like, I mean, it's like the cliche of like people being like, oh, I'm never going to drink again after just the worst night and a hangover. And it's like amazing how quickly you forget, or like me just feeling like total shit, being sick and not being able to stop smoking cigarettes with a sore throat or something stupid like that. And it's like, this is so dumb. And then you go through the whole process of like stopping, right? And then 6 months later, you're like, no, but I want to smoke again. It's like it's amazing to me sometimes how good your brain can be at
justifying stuff, and,
justifying
like,
things, or
forgetting
writing
things on purpose.
little stories for yourself,
Yeah.
or like,
Takes a lot of really hard work in terms of being honest with yourself and
yeah,
really analyzing what's actually going on.
Yeah.
Not what you want to be
totally,
going on.
totally. Hello, Phoebe Brewster, everybody.
But imagine this. Imagine if you had the hangover before you were allowed to drink, not the other way around.
Yeah, nobody would do it.
No one would do it.
No. But I think there's also, I mean, how do you feel about, because you were talking about alcohol and it being something very socially acceptable, and obviously I should say I drink, for those who don't know. It's like, how do you feel about it do you think it affects you more in a way, or do you think other people just aren't aware, or?
Does alcohol affect me more than other people?
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the thing that I was
Right.
talking.
Okay.
This other thing that
Right.
if you have something that suddenly feels less because you start drinking,
Right.
then it feels like more.
Yeah.
It has a bigger effect
Right.
on you.
Which is why maybe you said I have an addictive personality. I was trying to get to that bit of like, why would some people go down that road and other people not?
No, I was getting away from the addictive personality. I was saying, I think
I know you were getting away from it, but you said you used to say that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Where was I going with that?
I think someone who's dealing with something in their head,
Right.
something like alcohol or another drug,
Right.
can have a bigger effect on them because it suddenly makes them feel like they're dealing with the issue.
Right.
But if you don't have an issue,
Right.
or not as strong of something
Right.
that you're dealing with, then
Right.
then it just has a pretty.
Right.
It has
But
a
people can
lot-
also be
a much
addicted. Like
different
sometimes I wonder, like addicted, but more in a habit. Like people, let's say in England or something.
Mhm.
That's a culture where after work you go to the bar and you have a couple beers with your. I watched this amazing documentary that I was talking about a while ago called "Drinkers Like Me." This like
Mhm.
BBC documentary, and it kind of explores that of like how accepted it is, and how if you really look at what we consider binge drinking,
Yeah.
it's like everybody's fucking binge drinking.
Yeah.
It's such a small quantity per week that this British guy sort of like put himself through the test and put his friends through the test, and they were like through the roof, considered like binge drinker alcoholics.
Yeah.
Even though they were saying like, I don't really think it's a problem.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things that can just kind of run away from you a little bit, and you can look at yourself and say, oh my God, I'm drinking 4 or 5 beers a night. I need to be aware of that and obviously, pull it back a little or do something about it. I find that interesting that you could go for years and grow up in a culture where your dad did that, all your friends do it, blah, 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 and you would never know. You'd just be like, oh, this is just a...
I think there are definitely people who have exactly what I had, who wouldn't necessarily think it's a problem.
Right.
I don't think a lot. I mean, that's not a norm. I wouldn't say it's a normal thing.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I think it could very well. I feel very.
What was the definition you gave? When you don't want to do it.
You do it anyways.
But you do it anyways. It's interesting.
I really thought what you said many podcasts ago was very interesting, where you were saying that something like smoking weed or just having a couple of beers can make a very boring...
It just fills the time. Yeah.
Feel not boring, like a great time, or like a comfortable, relaxing time.
Yeah.
And that I think this is different from what I've just been talking about this whole time. But if we're talking about just the social acceptance of what alcohol does, I think that it is something that almost everyone is affected by, is this feeling of you just end up doing the same things over and over again, and they feel like they're fun because you're drinking, and only because you're drinking.
Right.
But if you took that away, you wouldn't want to do it.
Right.
And you might be doing something else.
Right.
And you'd have a lot more experiences that way. And that you wouldn't be satisfied with your current situation in a good way. Not like, I feel because it's real. I feel like you're in a clear state of mind. You're not being affected by another substance. And the way you feel there should be taken more seriously than the way you feel when you're under the influence of something. Even if it's small and it's not something that's a problem.
Right.
I think it's revealing a little bit that you wouldn't want to do what you're doing if you didn't drink. It's like, well, maybe you shouldn't do that then. There's something else that would really fulfill you if you spent your time differently.
I'm a little bit torn on that, because I think there are things, some people won't dance unless they have a drink, for example.
Yeah.
And of course I would say you don't have to drink to have fun.
Yeah.
But if you need a glass of wine to get you started, and then you have that much more fun afterwards because you're just a very nervous, uptight, insecure person or whatever. It's like, of course, there's other issues you should be working on as well to not have that be the case. But it's like, it doesn't bother me in the least, It's like it's a thing. It's part of being human a little bit. But I also see...
I think you're kind of getting at it a little, because you said it, like there's probably something else there to that's an issue.
Yeah, if you're insecure with dancing, right?
Yeah, it's like if you want to dance but you're not able to, maybe there's something really useful that you're being told by the way you feel in that situation, and that it's not the best thing to do isn't necessarily to just not deal with that, but just to drink instead. No, and then I'm not saying like get drunk and then dance. I mean like, oh, I feel nervous. I want to dance, but I don't want to while I feel like this. Yeah. So I'm going to have a couple of drinks. Now I feel like it. Now I'm going to do it. Yeah. What if there was a different way? Why do you want to dance in the first place?
Well, I think it's...
Maybe there's a way that you can actually really change the way you feel about it, not just in the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, there's small things, but I feel like there's significant things, because I feel like they happen all the time. And everyone has something that they do only if they've had something to drink, or that they definitely wouldn't do if they hadn't had something to drink.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I think it's interesting.
It's interesting. Again, I wouldn't go up to someone and say, "Oh, I think you have a problem." I think it would become a problem. I don't
think it's a problem.
No. But I think it would be a problem if they're acting differently. If it's like, oh, they drink and they become a little bit more this, which they already are. Yeah. I think that you can see and say, oh, they're just having a little fun tonight and whatever.
Their personality.
Right. And then there's people who like do things, and then you're like, why did you? Oh, I was drunk. Yeah. And it's like, I remember thinking when I was like 16, when we used to go out and drink, and some people would be like, do some weird shit, and then be like, oh, I was so drunk last night. And I was like
it's an excuse, or
Yeah,
it's
or like
a reason for you to be
it
like,
brought
okay.
out a different person in me, and I was like, I couldn't really relate with that. You know,
Yeah.
I've definitely gone too far and like blacked out or something, but I've never, even if I did something that I regretted, it was part of me. You know, there is an obnoxious, maybe a part of me that just did come out there, but it's not like it changed who I am as a person. It's just, you know.
I think it
Sounds like I'm a little defensive right now, but
no. But I it's something that was the point I was getting at a little bit in the beginning. I would say I do think that substances like that can change you because there's a chemical change that's happening in your brain, and that it's not. I don't think it is accurate to say that it is part of you all the time.
it's part
I
of
think that you said that thing that I did, that obnoxious thing, was it came from somewhere inside of me. Like that was.
Well, like an example would be like, I remember like jumping a fence and doing a backflip on someone's trampoline, like whose house I didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
It's like I'm trying to impress a girl that's there, or, you know, that's what I mean. It's like it's part of me, and like I can look at it the next day and be like, what a fucking idiot, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't like hit a girl.
No.
Like something I would never do. You know, it's like I can see how, yeah, I was a little bit loosened up, and there was this girl I liked, so I wanted to impress her. So then I did something stupid as a 16-year-old, right? I think that's more what I'm talking about. But what were you saying?
I was saying that I think alcohol can make you do things that you wouldn't do. That don't. I mean, that's what you're saying too. But I was getting at like not being able to answer that question. Why did I do that? And then having to come up with an answer that might not be accurate.
Right.
Something like, well, it's just because I'm a bad person, or that's because I'm an asshole.
Right.
Or
right.
Something that isn't. You have to like explain this weird thing that you did while you were under the influence of something that has a very dramatic chemical change.
Yeah.
Happening in your brain, and
Yeah.
I think it can be difficult to, not difficult. I think it can be dangerous to try and answer those questions, and say that, well, that's because that's part of who I am.
Oh, I see. But you understand the difference I'm talking about?
Yeah.
As in, like, if it just, what is it called? Amplifies a
Yeah.
part of you as opposed
Yeah.
to bringing out something that you had no idea of.
Yeah. I just think it would be healthy for it to become a little bit more normal to not drink in certain situations.
Mm-hmm.
Just to see, like, well, I mean, isn't that really who you are when you're not at all under the influence of anything?
Yeah.
Like, why is that so bad to be like that? In certain situations, it's totally normal in some situations, and in all
Right.
these other situations,
Right.
it's like, no,
Right.
definitely gotta
Right.
not be.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, and I think that's definitely something I would try to. I don't know. I'm finding I'm very split on this whole thing. I mean, it obviously goes off into drugs and all this other stuff as well, right? And like, maybe an example would be like if you take ecstasy or something, right? You're very likely, if you're good friends with somebody and you're taking it or something, you might really express how you feel about that person, right? You might really get deep and like, hey, just so you know, I really care about you and I love you and I appreciate all that. All that stuff might come out that you've never really said to a person before. And I would strongly say you don't need the drug to do that.
Yeah.
But at times, I don't think it's a bad thing, and I do enjoy doing that sort of stuff every once in a while, within bounds, with friends. And I think something I got out of it is like, well, why don't I do that more
In real life.
in real life, right?
Or like without the drug.
Right, but it's something that came out of that,
Right.
that I was like, oh, I do feel really, I can have a very close bond with a friend and be honest about it, and it doesn't have to be like, oh, you're gay, oh my God, you have emotions, right? It's like,
But that's an issue. That's the real issue there, maybe.
well, why do people not
That
say
it's
more
like,
often
it's like
that they care about each other and
embarrassing
stuff?
to say how
Yeah.
you really feel. Like,
Yeah.
maybe that's a bigger problem than I get what you mean.
You know, but I think people
totally
do the
get what you
same thing
mean.
with alcohol, and it
Yeah.
can be quite annoying when people are like, oh, I love you, bro. And I
Yeah.
think it's, coming out of them in a weird way, and you should be able to recognize that and say, well, I should do that more in real life, or I should do that more, If you only do that when you drink, yeah, then maybe that's part of the reason why you drink then or something. I don't know,
I gotta go pick up my bike.
Oh, shit. Okay.
So I'm running an Ironman, but I don't have a bike, and I haven't done any bike workouts yet. So I found this bike that I'm gonna go look at. That's apparently only gonna cost me 500 kroner, so I don't know what I'm gonna find.
About to get arrested in 5 seconds.
This bike's gonna be either like completely broken or it's gonna be sold by a crazy person.
Yeah. Where is it?
So like somewhere far away.
All right. We'll see you guys next week
50 minutes away.
on BBB.